The plasma rifles came up in unison. 24 barrels pointed at my chest. I didn't move. Couldn't move. Behind me, pressed against my back, the alien princess trembled. Her breathing came fast and shallow. Each exhale warm against my neck through the environmental suit. "Step away from the princess," the commander said in perfect English. His translator worked flawlessly, but his 4 eyes showed nothing but cold calculation. "You have 3 seconds. I raised my hands slowly. "I'm not the threat here. 2 seconds. The princess's fingers dug into my shoulders. She whispered something in her native language, words I couldn't understand but felt in my bones. Fear. Pure, desperate fear. "Wait." I kept my voice steady. "I'm just a maintenance worker. I was fixing the atmospheric processors in the lower levels. I don't even know how I got here. I'm in a Nizar. That was mostly true. I'd been elbow deep in conduit wiring when the explosion hit. The whole palace shook. Emergency protocols kicked in, sealing sections randomly. I'd run through the corridors, following the evacuation signs, and ended up in the throne room just as the princess came sprinting through another entrance. She'd seen me, seen the human on my suit patch, and without hesitation grabbed my arm. Then she'd positioned herself behind me, using me as a shield. That's when the royal guards burst in. "1 second. She came to me," I said. "I didn't touch her. I didn't do anything." The commander's secondary eyes narrowed. "Impossible. The princess would never seek protection from a human. Your species is classified as harmless. Weak. You have no natural weapons, no enhanced strength, no tactical advantage." Behind me, the princess spoke again, this time louder. Her voice carried authority, despite the fear. Every guard froze. The commander's weapon lowered an inch. "Your Highness, please, step away from the human. We will escort you to safety." She didn't move. Instead, her grip on my shoulders tightened. "Your Highness, your brother's forces have breached the palace. We must evacuate you immediately. The human is irrelevant. Her brother." That explained the explosion. A coup. I'd read about political tensions in the Vax Empire during my orientation, but corporate never mentioned civil war. The princess spoke again, her tone sharp and commanding. Whatever she said made the commander's scales ripple with what I guessed was frustration. "She says you are her chosen protector." The commander translated, his voice flat. "She invokes the ancient right of guardian selection. She claims you as her shield bearer." "What?" I almost turned around but caught myself. "I don't know anything about that. I fix air filters. Lake 4. I fix air filters. It doesn't matter what you know." The commander's weapons lowered completely, and he gestured for his soldiers to do the same. "If we harm you, we harm her. If we remove you by force, we violate sacred tradition." An explosion rocked the far end of the throne room. Dust rained from the vaulted ceiling. Shouting echoed through the corridors beyond. "They're coming," one of the guards said, his translator crackling with static. The commander moved forward, his movements predatory. "Human, I don't know what game you're playing, but you will protect the princess with your life. Do you understand? I'm not playing any game. I don't even have a weapon." He tossed something at my feet. A plasma pistol, compact and deadly. "You do now." I stared at it. I'd never fired a weapon in my life. My training covered pipe systems and recycling units, not combat. The princess released one of my shoulders and reached down, grabbing the pistol. She pressed it into my hand, her fingers cold and trembling. Then she spoke directly into my ear, her translator clicking on. "Please," she said in halting English. "They will kill me. My brother wants the throne. You are human. You are the only one they won't expect. The only one who can save me." More explosions. Closer now. "Move," the commander barked. "Emergency exit, North Corridor." The guards formed up around us, weapons raised. I looked at the pistol in my hand, then at the buckling doors. This wasn't my fight. This wasn't my world. I was just a maintenance worker from Earth, here on a 2-year contract to pay off student loans. But the princess was still pressed against my back, and every instinct I had screamed at me to protect her. The doors exploded inward. Soldiers poured through, their armor black and sleek, their weapons already firing. I pulled the trigger. The throne room erupted into chaos. Plasma bolts screamed through the air, each one leaving trails of superheated light. I fired blindly, not aiming, not thinking, just trying to keep the attackers back. The royal guards returned fire with brutal efficiency, their training evident in every movement. The princess stayed behind me, her hands gripping my suit so tightly I could feel the seams straining. I backpedaled toward the emergency exit, the commander shouting orders I barely heard over the weapons fire. An enemy soldier broke through the line, his rifle swinging toward us. I didn't think. I threw myself sideways, taking the princess with me. The plasma bolt missed by inches, scorching the wall where we'd stood. I fired back, and somehow, impossibly, hit him center mass. He dropped. "Keep moving," the commander yelled. He was at my side now, his own weapon blazing. "Don't stop. Don't look back." We reached the emergency exit. One of the guards slapped the control panel, and the reinforced door slid open. Beyond it, a narrow corridor stretched into darkness, lit only by emergency strips. "Go," the commander said. "Take the princess. Get to the evacuation shuttle on the roof. We'll hold them here." "You'll die," I said. "We're already dead." He met my eyes with all 4 of his. "But she doesn't have to be. The ancient laws protect you both. They can't pursue you without violating every code they claim to uphold. You're her only chance." Another explosion. This one inside the throne room. Part of the ceiling collapsed, crushing 2 of the guards. The enemy soldiers pushed forward through the debris. The princess pulled me toward the corridor. She was saying something, her voice urgent. The commander nodded once, a gesture that seemed to carry enormous weight. "The human doesn't understand what he's agreed to," the commander said to her in English. "Probably for my benefit. But the laws are clear. He is yours until death or release. May your ancestors guide you both." Then he turned back to the fight, and we ran into the darkness. The corridor was a maintenance shaft. All exposed pipes and cramped spaces, perfect for someone who'd spent months crawling through the palace's infrastructure. I knew these passages. Not this specific one, but the layout was standard across the entire complex. Behind us, the sounds of battle faded. The princess's breathing was ragged now, exhausted. I slowed, let her catch up properly. "How far to the roof?" I asked. She tapped her wrist device, and a holographic map appeared. We were 12 levels below the landing pad. Under normal circumstances, it would take 20 minutes, with enemy soldiers hunting us, maybe less if we didn't get caught. "Can you run?" I asked. She nodded, but I could see the fear still bright in her eyes. She was young, maybe equivalent to early 20s in human years. Her scales were silver and blue, marking her as royalty. They caught the emergency lighting and reflected it like precious metal. We started up the maintenance ladder. My arms burned after the first 3 levels. The princess climbed behind me, her movements graceful despite her obvious terror. Whatever training royal children received, it apparently included physical fitness. At level 8, we heard voices below. Enemy soldiers had found the corridor. They were coming fast. "Faster," I said, though my lungs were already screaming. We burst out onto level 10, into what looked like a storage area. Crates were stacked everywhere, supplies for the palace staff. I pulled the princess behind a tall stack and held my finger to my lips. The soldiers emerged from the maintenance shaft moments later, 3 of them, all in black armor, all carrying rifles that made my pistol look like a toy. They spread out, searching methodically. The princess's hand found mine. She squeezed once, her skin cold against my palm. One of the soldiers moved closer to our hiding spot. I could hear his breathing through his helmet, steady and professional. He was checking every corner, every shadow. I raised the plasma pistol. My hand shook. I'd gotten lucky in the throne room, but luck ran out. I wasn't a soldier. I wasn't trained for this. The soldier stepped around the crate. His weapon came up. Time seemed to slow. Every detail crystalline and sharp. I could see the charge indicator on his rifle, the way his finger rested on the trigger, the slight turn of his head as he registered our presence. I fired first. The bolt caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around. He went down hard, his rifle clattering across the floor. The other two soldiers turned, weapons tracking toward the sound. "Run!" I yelled, grabbing the princess's arm. We ran. Behind us, plasma bolts lit up the storage area. We zigzagged between crates, using them for cover. One bolt hit close enough that I felt the heat through my suit. Ahead, another maintenance shaft. We dove for it, sliding down the ladder rather than climbing. My hands burned on the rungs, but we dropped 3 levels in seconds. The princess landed beside me, rolling to absorb the impact. More corridors, more running. My sense of direction was shot. The palace was a maze even when you weren't fleeing for your life. But the princess seemed to know where she was going. She pulled ahead, guiding us through turns I wouldn't have taken. We emerged into a hydroponics bay. The air was thick and humid, filled with the smell of growing things. Massive tanks lined the walls, growing food for the palace inhabitants. The plants were alien, nothing like Earth crops, but the basic setup was familiar. "This way," the princess said, her English still halting but clear enough. She led me through the rows of tanks, deeper into the bay. At the far end, a service elevator. She called it, and the doors opened immediately. We stepped inside, and she punched in a code on the control panel. The elevator began to rise, smooth and silent. "This goes to the roof?" I asked. She nodded. "Private access. Only royal family knows the code. Your brother knows it too." Her expression darkened. "Yes, he knows." The elevator climbed. 10 seconds. 20. I watched the level indicator, counting up. We were at 14. 15. 16. At 19, the elevator jerked to a stop. The lights flickered. An alarm began to wail, high-pitched and urgent. "He's locked down the system," the princess said. She was already moving, prying open the control panel. Her fingers flew across the internal mechanisms, bypassing security protocols I couldn't begin to understand. The elevator shuddered, started to descend. "He's bringing us down," she said. There was no panic in her voice now, just cold calculation. "We have to get out." She hit the emergency override, and the doors cracked open. We were between floors, the shaft stretching above and below us. I could see the next level, about 4 feet above the elevator roof. "Can you climb?" I asked. She looked at me like I'd asked if she could breathe. "I'm royal. We train for everything." We climbed out through the emergency hatch onto the elevator roof. The shaft was dark, except for the service lights running along the walls. Above us, the cables hummed with tension. Below, the elevator continued its descent, leaving us stranded. I grabbed the maintenance ladder built into the shaft wall. "How many levels to the roof?" 6. 6 levels. Vertical climb, with enemy soldiers probably already on their way. My arms were still burning from the earlier climb, but I started up anyway. The princess followed, her movements quick and sure. We climbed in silence. The only sounds are breathing and the distant wail of alarms. At level 22, I heard voices above us. Someone was checking the shaft. We froze, pressed against the ladder. The voices continued, discussing protocols and security measures. Then, they moved away. We kept climbing. 23. 24. My muscles screamed. Sweat ran down my face, fogging my helmet's interior display. I wanted to stop. Wanted to rest. But stopping meant dying. At level 25, the princess spoke. Why did you save me? What? In the throne room. You could have surrendered me. They would have let you live. Why? Protect me. I didn't have a good answer. Seemed like the right thing to do. She was quiet for a moment. Humans are strange. Your species is classified as non-threatening. Physically weak. No natural defenses. Yet you threw yourself in front of plasma fire for someone you'd never met. Maybe your classification system is broken. She laughed, a sound like wind chimes. Perhaps it is. We reached the top of the shaft. A heavy door blocked our way, marked with royal insignia. The princess entered another code, and it unsealed with a hiss. We pulled ourselves through into a small antechamber. Beyond it, through a reinforced window, I could see the landing pad. A shuttle sat waiting, its engines already warming up. But between us and the shuttle, at least a dozen enemy soldiers stood guard. There's too many, I said. The princess studied the scene, her expression unreadable. Then she turned to me, and I saw something new in her eyes. Not fear, not desperation, determination. There's something you need to know about the ancient laws, she said. The ones I invoked in the throne room. What about them? When a royal selects a guardian, when someone accepts that role, they become bound. Legally, spiritually, permanently. You're not just my protector now. In the eyes of the Empire, you're my consort, my equal, my chosen. I stared at her. You didn't mention that part. Would you have accepted if I had? Probably not. She smiled, sad and knowing. That's why I didn't tell you. But it means my brother can't kill you without declaring war on every house that honors the old ways. If he does, he loses all legitimacy. His coup fails. So we're using ancient marriage laws as a political weapon. Essentially, yes. I looked back at the soldiers on the landing pad. They weren't going to let us walk to that shuttle. Marriage laws or not, they had orders. And orders usually involved shooting first and sorting out legal complications later. We need a distraction, I said. The princess nodded toward a control panel on the wall. This room controls the pad's defensive systems. Anti-aircraft batteries, shield generators, the works. If we activate them, the soldiers will have to respond. And we run for the shuttle during the confusion. Exactly. It was a terrible plan. The kind of plan that got people killed. But it was the only plan we had. I moved to the control panel and started entering commands. The system was locked, but the princess provided override codes her brother hadn't thought to change. The defensive batteries came online with a deep thrumming sound. On the landing pad, soldiers scattered as the turrets swiveled toward them, their targeting systems activating. The batteries weren't actually firing, just powering up. But the threat was enough. Now, the princess said. We burst through the door onto the landing pad. The wind hit us immediately, cold and sharp. The city stretched out below, a sprawling mass of towers and lights. Somewhere down there, her brother's forces were consolidating power. Somewhere down there, people were dying. We ran. The soldiers saw us, raised their weapons, but the defensive batteries locked onto them too. They had to choose between shooting at us and dealing with the automated systems that could reduce them to atoms. Most chose the batteries. We were halfway to the shuttle when one soldier broke ranks. He sprinted toward us, his rifle coming up. I fired the plasma pistol, but the shot went wide. He was too fast, too well trained. The princess grabbed my arm and pulled me sideways. The soldier's shot missed by inches. Then she yanked a small device from her belt and threw it at him. The device hit the ground and exploded in a flash of light and sound. The soldier went down, stunned. Royal emergency kit, she said, answering my unasked question. We're taught to carry them always. We reached the shuttle. The boarding ramp was down, and I could see the pilot inside, frantically waving us forward. We ran up the ramp, and it began to close before we were even fully inside. The shuttle lurched into the air. Through the viewport, I saw the landing pad falling away. The defensive batteries were now firing, keeping the enemy soldiers pinned. We'd made it. The princess collapsed into a seat, her breathing ragged. I sat beside her, my whole body shaking with adrenaline crash. We'd actually escaped. Against all odds, against all logic, we'd survived. Where are we going? I asked the pilot. He was human too, I realized with a start. One of the few working in the palace. Neutral station, he said. 3 hours at full burn. The princess contacted me when the coup started. Asked me to be ready. I looked at the princess. You planned this. Not the part where I needed a human maintenance worker as a guardian, she said. But yes, I had contingencies. My brother has been planning his move for months. I knew it was coming. And the ancient laws? Choosing me as your protector? She met my eyes. And for the first time since this started, she looked uncertain. That part was improvisation. But it's real. The binding is legitimate. If you want to contest it, we can bring it before the high courts. But the process takes years. In the meantime, you're legally my consort. I should have been angry. Should have felt manipulated. But looking at her, seeing the weight she carried, the impossible choices she'd been forced to make, I couldn't find it in myself to blame her. What happens now? I asked. Now we survive, she said. We reach the neutral station. We gather allies. We find a way to stop my brother before he destroys everything our family built. She paused. And you decide if you want to stay. I won't force you. The laws bind me as much as they bind you. If you choose to leave, I'll release you. You can go back to Earth, back to your maintenance job, and forget any of this happened. The shuttle jumped to faster than light. The stars stretched into lines outside the viewport. Behind us, the Vax homeworld grew smaller, a blue-green marble disappearing into the void. I thought about Earth, about my apartment in New Jersey, my student loans, my simple life fixing air processors and checking pressure seals. That life seemed impossibly far away now, not just in distance, but in meaning. I've never been much of a hero, I said. The princess smiled. Neither have I. But perhaps we can learn together. Quote. The pilot called back from the cockpit. Your Highness, I'm picking up pursuit. 3 fighters, closing fast. Can we outrun them? She asked. Not likely. They're military grade. I stood and moved to the cockpit. Through the forward viewport, I could see the fighters as bright dots against the stars, growing larger. They were sleek and deadly, built for one purpose. We need weapons, I said. The pilot shook his head. This is a civilian shuttle. We've got shields, but no offensive capabilities. Then we need to be creative. I scanned the console, looking at the shuttle's systems. There had to be something, some way, to level the playing field. The cargo bay. It was full of supplies the princess had loaded before the coup. Medical equipment, food, emergency gear, and one item that caught my eye on the manifest. Industrial plasma cutters, the kind used for salvage operations. Not weapons exactly, but close enough. Take us into that debris field, I said, pointing to a cluster of old ships and station wreckage ahead. And open the cargo bay doors. That's suicide, the pilot said. The fighters will tear us apart in there, or the debris will provide cover, and we can turn this into a knife fight instead of an execution. The princess appeared behind us. Do it. The pilot cursed in 3 languages but complied. The shuttle dove into the debris field, weaving between shattered hull plates and drifting engines. The fighters followed, their weapons beginning to charge. I ran back to the cargo bay. The doors were already opening, the atmosphere shield keeping us from being sucked into space. I grabbed one of the plasma cutters, checked its charge. Full power, enough to slice through starship hull plating. The fighters were in the field now, moving more cautiously. Debris could damage their systems as easily as it could ours. I waited, watching through the open bay doors as one fighter came in close, trying to line up a shot. When it passed within 50 meters, I fired the plasma cutter. The beam lanced out, superheated and focused. It caught the fighter's wing, melting through armor like butter. The ship spun out of control, crashing into a piece of debris and exploding in a brief, bright flash. One down, I called to the cockpit. The other two fighters spread out, coming at us from different angles. Smarter, more cautious. The pilot threw the shuttle into a hard roll, narrowly avoiding a missile. The projectile shot past us and detonated against an old frigate hull. "They're trying to box us in," the pilot yelled. I saw it too. One fighter above, one below. They were coordinating, cutting off our escape routes. In open space, they'd have us. But in the debris field, with all this cover, with all this junk floating around, "Take us toward that old station core," I said, pointing to a massive cylindrical structure ahead. "The one with the hollow center. That's insane." "Do it." The shuttle accelerated toward the core. The fighters followed, sensing the kill. We dove into the hollow center, a tube of twisted metal and shattered systems. The fighters came in behind us, weapons hot. I fired the plasma cutter at the walls as we passed. The beam cut through support struts, weakening the structure. Behind us, the fighters didn't notice until it was too late. The core began to collapse, metal screaming as it gave way. One fighter tried to pull up, but a falling section caught it, crushing the cockpit. The pilot died instantly. The last fighter made it through, but it was damaged, trailing sparks and venting atmosphere. It came at us with everything it had, firing missiles and energy weapons in desperation. The pilot jinked and rolled, but we couldn't avoid everything. A missile clipped our starboard wing, and alarms shrieked through the shuttle. We were losing power, shields failing. "I'm out of tricks," the pilot said. The fighter lined up for the killing shot. I could see its weapons charging, the targeting laser painting our hull. This was it. We'd run out of luck. Then the fighter exploded. Just came apart in a ball of fire and shrapnel. No warning, no apparent cause. Just gone. "What happened?" the princess asked. On the comm system, a new voice crackled to life. "This is Captain Rodriguez, of the merchant vessel Wandering Star. Looked like you folks needed some help." Through the viewport, I saw a ship emerging from behind a piece of debris. It was old and battered, a freighter that had seen better decades. But it was armed, and it had just saved our lives. "Captain Rodriguez, this is the Vax Royal Shuttle," the princess said into the comm. "We're in your debt." "No debt necessary, Your Highness. Heard about the coup on the news feeds. Figured the rightful ruler might need some assistance." There was a pause. "Plus, I hate bullies. Your brother's forces have been hassling independent traders for months." Someone pushed back. The shuttle's engines were failing. Warning lights covered the console. We weren't going to make it to the neutral station. Not with this much damage. "Captain, we need a place to dock," the pilot said. "Come aboard. We'll get you patched up." The Wandering Star's docking bay was cramped and cluttered, filled with cargo containers and spare parts. But it was safe, and right now that was all that mattered. The princess and I transferred over, while the pilot stayed behind to assess the damage. Captain Rodriguez met us at the airlock. She was short and stocky, with gray hair pulled back in a practical bun. Her eyes were sharp, taking in everything. "Your Highness," she said, bowing slightly. And you must be the human everyone's talking about, the maintenance worker who became a royal guardian. News travels fast, I said. The whole sector's buzzing about it. A human, invoking the ancient laws. First time, in 300 years. She smiled. You've made quite an impression. All. Olanastoro. Olanastoro. Chamber bin by. Let's de bin by rang. You've made quite an impression. I didn't do anything. You protected someone who needed help, Captain Rodriguez interrupted. That's not nothing. That's everything. She led us deeper into the ship, toward the crew quarters. The wandering star was old, but well-maintained. Every system showing the care of someone who knew their vessel intimately. We passed through the cargo bay, and I noticed the containers were marked with medical supplies, food, emergency equipment, aid shipments, not trade goods. You're running supplies to war zones, I said. Someone has to. The coups turned half the sector into a battlefield. Colonies are cut off, stations are under siege. The big corporations won't help. The military is divided. So independent operators like me do what we can. The princess stopped walking. You're helping my people. I'm helping people, period. Some of them happen to be Vax. Some are human. Some are Kellax or Thrin, or any of a dozen other species caught in this mess. Captain Rodriguez's expression hardened. Your brother's coup isn't just about power. It's about control. He wants to close the borders, restrict trade, turn the Vax empire inward. A lot of innocent people will suffer if he succeeds. Then we'll stop him, the princess said. There was steel in her voice now. The fear from earlier completely gone. She was in her element, planning and strategizing. Captain, I need to contact my allies, the houses that still support the legitimate throne. It can handle anything you need. For the next 2 hours, the princess worked. She sent messages, received responses, coordinated with loyalist forces scattered across the sector. I watched her transform from a frightened young woman into a leader. Someone people would follow into fire. It was impressive and humbling. Captain Rodriguez pulled me aside while the princess was busy. You know what you've gotten yourself into? An arranged marriage I didn't agree to and a war I'm not trained for? She laughed. That about sums it up. But seriously, the ancient laws aren't just ceremony. They carry real weight. You're not just her protector. You're her political partner, her voice in councils that wouldn't otherwise listen to a human. That's powerful. If you choose to use it. I don't know anything about politics. You don't have to. You just have to be honest and brave. Those qualities are rarer than you think in royal circles. She paused. The princess chose you, for a reason. Maybe she didn't plan it, but instinct kicked in, and she went to you. Trust that instinct. I looked at the princess, still working at the communications console. She'd removed her royal garments, trading them for practical ship clothing Captain Rodriguez had provided, without the symbols of her station. She looked younger, more vulnerable. But her eyes still carried that determination, that refusal to give up. What if I'm not enough? I asked. What if I let her down? Then you'll fail together. But at least you'll have tried. Captain Rodriguez clapped me on the shoulder. Better than spending your life wondering what might have been. Better? Better? The princess finished her transmissions and came over to us. I've made contact with 3 loyalist houses. They're willing to support a counteroffensive, but they need a rallying point, somewhere to gather forces and plan. What about the neutral station we were heading to? I asked. She shook her head. Too exposed. My brother will have agents there, maybe even military assets. We need somewhere unexpected, somewhere he wouldn't think to look. Captain Rodriguez smiled. I might have a suggestion. She brought up a star chart on the wall display. A remote system, far from the main trade routes. A single planet orbited a dying star. Its surface mostly uninhabitable but dotted with mining operations and research stations. Kepler 772, she said. The mines are mostly automated now, but there's still a small human colony there, about 5,000 people. They're independent, don't answer to any government. And they've got enough infrastructure to support a military staging ground if you ask nicely. Why would they help us? The princess asked. Because your brother's trade restrictions are killing them. They export rare minerals, but without access to vax markets, they're going broke. Help them, and they'll help you. The princess studied the star chart. It's risky. If my brother discovers our location before we're ready. Oh, every option is risky, I said. But this one gives us a chance to build something. A real base of operations. She looked at me, searching my face for something. Whatever she found must have satisfied her because she nodded. Then we go to Kepler 772. Captain Rodriguez, can you take us there? I can. But I'll need to make some stops first. Pick up supplies, call in some favors. It'll take a week, maybe more. Then let's get started. The week that followed was the strangest of my life. We traveled from station to station, always staying one step ahead of the princess's brother's forces. Captain Rodriguez knew every hidden dock, every smuggler's route, every back channel that could keep us off the official sensors. The princess worked constantly, building her coalition. She reached out to minor noble houses, merchant guilds, military commanders who hadn't yet chosen sides. Some agreed to help. Others declined, too afraid of the consequences. A few even reported our location to her brother, forcing us to flee and change course. Through it all, she never wavered. Never showed doubt or fear. She was building something, piece by piece. An alternative to her brother's vision. A movement. And I was part of it. Not just as her guardian, but as her partner. She included me in every decision, every strategy session. At first, I felt useless. What did I know about interstellar politics or military tactics? But gradually, I found my role. I asked the questions no one else thought to ask. I looked at problems from angles that came naturally to a human but were foreign to Vax thinking. The princess called it my outsider perspective. Captain Rodriguez called it common sense. Either way, it seemed to help. On the 5th day, we received word that one of the loyalist houses had been attacked. The entire family line, wiped out in a single night. The princess watched the news report in silence, her expression carved from stone. When it finished, she turned off the screen and stared at the blank wall. He's escalating, she said quietly. He's not just consolidating power anymore. He's eliminating anyone who might challenge him. How many houses are left? I asked. 6 that still openly support me. Maybe a dozen more that are neutral but could be swayed. She sat down, suddenly looking exhausted. It's not enough. Even with all of them, we don't have the military strength to challenge him directly. Then, we don't challenge him directly. We use guerrilla tactics. Hit and run. Disrupt his supply lines. Turn public opinion against him. That could take years. And how many more will die while we wait? I didn't have an answer for that. The truth was brutal and simple. People were going to die. Regardless. The only question was how many and whether their deaths would matter. In the end, Captain Rodriguez entered the room. We're approaching Kepler 772. I've made contact with the colony administrator. He's agreed to meet with us. The planet was gray and desolate, its surface scarred by centuries of mining. But the colony itself was impressive. A sprawling complex of domes and tunnels carved into the rock. As we descended, I could see ships moving between the domes, transporting ore and supplies. The administrator met us at the landing pad. He was a tall man, with weathered skin and tired eyes. His name was Frank Chen, and he'd been running the colony for 15 years. Your Highness, he said, shaking the princess's hand. I appreciate you coming all this way. When Captain Rodriguez explained the situation, I have to admit, I was skeptical. But circumstances being what they are, I'm willing to listen. We met in the colony's main conference room, deep underground where the temperature was regulated and the air was breathable. Frank laid out the colony's situation bluntly. They were dying slowly, strangled by the new trade restrictions. Without vax markets, they couldn't sell their minerals. Without income, they couldn't buy supplies or maintain equipment. We've got maybe 6 months before we start losing people, Frank said. After that, we'll have to evacuate. Abandon everything we've built here. My brother's policies are wrong, the princess said. They hurt everyone, not just you. But I can't change them until I reclaim my rightful position. And you want our help to do that. I want to offer you a partnership. You provide a base of operations, and I guarantee that when this is over, your colony will have unrestricted access to vax markets. More than that, I'll personally invest in expanding your operations. Turn this colony from a dying outpost into a thriving trade hub. Frank studied her, weighing her words. That's a big promise. How do I know you can keep it? Because I invoked the ancient laws and chose a human as my consort. Every major house in the empire knows what that means. It means I'm committed to integration, to cooperation between species. Supporting your colony isn't just politics for me. It's personal. 140. Frank looked at me. You're the maintenance worker everyone's talking about. That's me. You really threw yourself in front of plasma fire for her? Seemed like the thing to do at the time. He laughed, a short bark of surprise. You know what? I believe you. Both of you. He extended his hand to the princess. You've got yourself a deal. Over the next 2 weeks, Kepler 772 transformed. Loyalist forces began arriving. Small units at first, then larger ones. Ships appeared in orbit. Weapons and supplies were stockpiled. The colony's empty warehouses filled with military equipment. Frank's people worked alongside Vax soldiers, human mechanics repairing alien ships, miners teaching warriors how to move through tunnels. The cultural exchange was chaotic and beautiful, and completely unprecedented. I found myself in the middle of it all, translating not just language, but intent. Humans and Vax thought differently, operated differently. Small misunderstandings could spiral into major problems, but when I explained each side to the other, when I bridged the gap, things worked. The princess noticed. She started assigning me to liaison roles, putting me in charge of coordinating between human and Vax units. It was exhausting and terrifying, and the most alive I'd ever felt. One night, 3 weeks into our stay, I found the princess standing alone on one of the colony's observation platforms. The planet's surface stretched out below us, endless gray rock lit by the dim red glow of the dying star. Can't sleep? I asked, joining her at the railing. Too much to think about. She didn't look at me, just kept staring at the barren landscape. We're running out of time. My brother's forces are consolidating. Every day we wait, he gets stronger. Then we stop waiting. We strike first. With what? We have 3,000 soldiers, maybe. He has 50,000. We have a dozen ships. He has a fleet. She finally turned to face me. I appreciate your optimism, but we can't win this with conventional tactics. Then we use unconventional ones. I'd been thinking about this, working through possibilities in the quiet hours. The princess's brother had military superiority, yes, but he also had weaknesses. He was overextended, trying to control too much territory with divided forces. His legitimacy was questionable. His support base uncertain. We don't need to defeat his entire military, I said. We just need to make it politically impossible for him to rule. Turn public opinion. Sway the neutral houses. Create enough chaos that maintaining power becomes untenable. How? By proving he violated the sacred laws. By showing that he murdered royal family members, that he's a tyrant rather than a legitimate ruler. I pulled up my datapad, showing her the information I'd been gathering. Captain Rodriguez has been collecting evidence. Testimony from survivors, communications intercepts, financial records. We leak this to the public. Frame it correctly, and his support crumbles. The princess studied the data, her expression intent. This could work, but it would take time to verify, to present properly, and he would retaliate immediately. Anyone we expose this to could be targeted. That's why we don't just expose it. We broadcast it everywhere simultaneously. Every news outlet, every data network, every communication channel in the sector. Flood the zone with information. Make it impossible to suppress or deny. A smile spread across her face, the first genuine one I'd seen in weeks. You're starting to think like a revolutionary. I'm starting to think like someone who's very tired of running. She reached out and took my hand. Her skin was cool, her scales smooth under my fingertips. Thank you. For everything. For staying. For fighting. For being exactly what I needed when I needed it most. You chose me, I said. I'm just trying to live up to that choice. You've exceeded it. She squeezed my hand once, then let go. Come on. If we're going to start an information war, we need to brief the team. The next 48 hours were a blur. We worked with Captain Rodriguez to package the evidence, creating a narrative that was clear, compelling, and irrefutable. We identified targets, journalists, politicians, military commanders who might be swayed. We prepared redundant systems, backup plans, fail-safes to ensure the information would get out even if we were stopped. On the third day, we were ready. The princess stood in the colony's communication center, surrounded by her most trusted advisors. Human technicians and VAX operators worked side by side, their fingers flying across controls. This is it, she said. Once we do this, there's no going back. My brother will know where we are. He'll come for us with everything he has. Then we'd better make sure this works, I said. She nodded to the chief operator. Send it. All channels. Maximum distribution. The data burst lasted 3 seconds. In that time, every communication network in the sector received the package. News organizations, military command structures, civilian data networks. Billions of people suddenly had access to the truth about the coup. The response was immediate and overwhelming. News feeds exploded with the story. Social media platforms crashed under the volume of discussion. Military units began demanding answers from their commanders. Neutral houses issued statements condemning the violence. And the princess's brother responded exactly as we'd predicted. Ships appeared in orbit around Kepler 772 within 6 hours. An entire battle group, ready to eliminate the threat we represented. But now, everyone was watching. The whole sector had their eyes on this remote mining colony. If he attacked us, he would prove every accusation we'd made. If he backed down, he would appear weak. He attacked. The bombardment began at dawn, if you could call it dawn, on a planet with a dying star. Orbital strikes lit up the sky, targeting our defensive positions. But we were ready. Frank's people had been preparing the colony's defenses for weeks, reinforcing shelters and setting up shield generators. The shields held, but barely. Each impact sent shockwaves through the colony. Dust rained from the tunnel ceilings. Emergency lights flickered and failed. We huddled in the command center, watching the tactical displays as the enemy fleet positioned itself for a ground assault. They're sending dropships, one of the VAX officers reported. 400 units. Estimated 20,000 troops. We have 3,000, another officer said. The princess looked at me. In her eyes, I saw not fear, but resolve. What do you think? I think we hold them as long as we can, and we make sure every second of this fight is broadcast across the sector. Let everyone see what lengths your brother will go to maintain power. She smiled grimly. A siege with an audience. I like it. Frank appeared on the command center screen, calling in from the surface defenses. Your Highness, my people are ready. We're not soldiers, but we can shoot straight enough. Just tell us where you need us. Hold the outer perimeter as long as possible, then fall back to the inner tunnels. We'll make them fight for every meter. She switched to the fleet channel. Captain Rodriguez? Status? We're outnumbered 5-1, but we've got some tricks. The debris field from the old mining operations can provide cover. We'll harass them, slow them down. The dropships entered atmosphere, their heat shields glowing white-hot. Our anti-aircraft batteries opened fire, filling the sky with explosive rounds. Some dropships were hit, spiraling down in flames. But most made it through, landing in designated zones around the colony. The ground assault began. Enemy soldiers poured from the dropships, thousands of them in black armor, moving with military precision. Our forces engaged them at the perimeter, using the terrain to their advantage. Humans and Vax fought side by side, covering each other, adapting to each other's tactics in real time. I was assigned to a forward command post, coordinating defensive positions. The plasma pistol felt light in my hand now, almost natural. I'd fired it enough times in the past weeks that the motion had become automatic. An enemy unit broke through on the eastern flank. I called in reinforcements, but they were tied up on the western side. The breakthrough team was heading straight for a civilian shelter. I'm going, I said into my comm. Negative, the tactical officer responded. You're needed at command. People will die if I don't move now. I didn't wait for permission. I grabbed 2 human colonists, both experienced miners, who knew the tunnels better than anyone. We took a maintenance shaft that led to the shelter, emerging behind the enemy unit. There were 8 of them. Professionals who moved like they'd been doing this their whole lives. But they weren't expecting us. We opened fire from cover, dropping 3 before they could react. The others scattered, returning fire. One of the colonists took a hit, his armor absorbing most of the blast, but knocking him down hard. I pulled him back while the other colonists provided covering fire. The enemy pressed forward, and we retreated deeper into the tunnels. But I knew these passages now, knew where they twisted and doubled back. I led the enemy soldiers into a dead end, then sealed the blast door behind them. They were trapped, no longer a threat. When we got back to the shelter, the civilians were safe. They looked at me with something like awe, which felt ridiculous. I'd just done what needed doing. But I guess that was the point. Sometimes heroism was just doing what needed doing when everyone else couldn't. The battle raged for 18 hours. The enemy pushed deeper into the colony, taking the outer levels. But every advance cost them dearly. Our forces fell back in good order, using prepared positions and defensive choke points. The casualty ratio was in our favor, but numbers still mattered. We were running out of troops. In the command center, the princess coordinated the defense with calm efficiency. She'd moved past fear into a state of pure focus. Every decision was calculated, every order precise. This was her true test, and she was passing it with distinction. They're preparing for a final push, one of the officers reported. Concentrating forces on the main entrance. If they break through there, they'll have direct access to the core levels. Then we stop them there, the princess said. She looked at me. I need you to lead the defense. Take everyone we can spare. Hold that entrance until reinforcements arrive. What reinforcements? She smiled. Trust me, I gathered every available soldier, human and Vax alike. About 200 fighters, exhausted and low on ammunition, but still ready. We moved to the main entrance, a massive tunnel that led from the surface to the colony heart. The enemy came in waves. Hundreds of soldiers, backed by heavy weapons and armored vehicles. We fought from behind barricades, using every trick we'd learned. The tunnel became a killing field, bodies and wreckage piling up, but they kept coming. My plasma pistol ran dry. I picked up a rifle from a fallen soldier and kept firing. The humans around me did the same. adapting, improvising. One colonist jury-rigged explosives from mining charges, bringing down part of the tunnel ceiling on an advancing squad. We were being pushed back, step by bloody step. My arms ached, my lungs burned. Every breath tasted like smoke and death. This was it. This was how we'd lose. Not because we weren't good enough, but because there were just too many of them. Then I heard it. A sound like thunder, but deeper, rhythmic, growing louder. Ships, lots of ships. The enemy heard it too. Their advance faltered. Confusion rippled through their ranks. Then, their command channel lit up with urgent transmissions. They were being ordered to fall back, to return to their dropships immediately. I looked at the tactical display. New signatures were appearing in orbit. Dozens of them. A fleet. But not the Princess's brothers' forces. These were different configurations, different transponder codes. The neutral houses, one of the VAX officers said, his voice filled with wonder. They've declared for the Princess. They're here, the reinforcements the Princess had promised. She'd been working diplomatic channels throughout the siege, using the brothers' atrocity to sway the undecided. And it had worked. The neutral houses, seeing the brutality of the attack broadcast across the sector, had chosen their side. The enemy forces retreated, scrambling to evacuate before the new arrivals could engage. Some made it to their dropships. Others were left behind, surrendering rather than facing annihilation. The battle was over. We'd won. Not just the fight, but the war. With the neutral houses on her side, the Princess now commanded the larger force. Her brother's legitimacy was shattered. His support base had collapsed. I sat down against the tunnel wall, too exhausted to stand. Around me, humans and Vax were doing the same. Some laughing, some crying. All of them relieved beyond words. The Princess found me there an hour later. She sat down beside me, her royal garments torn and stained with dust. "You did it," I said. "We did it," she corrected. "Every person here played their part. But you, especially. You held when it mattered most. I just followed your orders. No, you exceeded them. You showed everyone what humans are capable of when pushed. Strength isn't just physical power or advanced weapons. It's determination. It's refusing to quit when quitting would be easier." She paused. "The neutral houses didn't join us just because of the evidence. They joined because they watched you and your people fight. They saw what I saw in that throne room. Potential. Courage. The qualities that make someone worth following." Over the next 3 months, the Princess's brothers' regime collapsed. House after house defected. Military commanders switched sides. Entire fleets declared for the rightful ruler. There were still battles, still resistance in some quarters. But the outcome was no longer in doubt. The brother himself was captured trying to flee the sector. He stood trial before the high courts, charged with murder, treason, and violation of sacred laws. The evidence we'd compiled was presented in exhaustive detail. He was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to life imprisonment. The Princess was formally crowned in a ceremony that mixed ancient Vax tradition with new elements. Human delegates stood alongside Vax nobles. Frank Chen was there, representing Kepler 772. Captain Rodriguez wore an actual dress uniform for the first time in decades, and I stood beside the Princess as her consort, her guardian, her partner, the human who'd accidentally become part of galactic history. After the ceremony, we had a moment alone on the palace balcony. The same palace where this had all begun, now repaired and renewed. The city below sparkled with celebration. Lights and music drifting up on the evening air. "What will you do now?" she asked. "You fulfilled your duty. The ancient laws say you can request release now that the danger has passed. You could go home, resume your life." I thought about Earth, about my old apartment and my maintenance job. That life felt like something from a dream, distant and unreal. This was my life now. These people, this place, this impossible future we were building together. I think I'll stay, I said. If that's all right with you. She smiled. And in that smile, I saw relief and joy and something deeper. Something that had been growing between us through all the battles and struggles. Partnership. Yes. But also, friendship. And maybe, in time, something more. I was hoping you'd say that, she said. We have a lot of work ahead of us. Rebuilding the empire. Integrating human colonies. Creating new trade agreements. I could use someone with your perspective. The maintenance worker's perspective? The perspective of someone who sees solutions where others see only problems. The perspective of someone who throws themselves in front of plasma fire for a stranger. She took my hand, her scales warm in the evening light. The perspective of a hero, even if he doesn't realize he is one. Below us, the celebration continued. Humans and Vax dancing together, sharing food and stories. A new era beginning, built on the foundation of an accidental alliance in a throne room. I squeezed her hand gently. Whatever comes next, we face it together. Together, she agreed. My guardian, my consort, my friend. The city lights reflected in her eyes. And I saw the future there. Uncertain, challenging, full of possibilities. We'd stumbled into this partnership, but we'd make it work. We'd build something new. Something better. Because sometimes the best things in life are the ones you never planned for. The ones that find you in a moment of crisis and change everything. The ones that turn a simple maintenance worker into someone who matters. I'd hidden a princess behind me in a throne room, and in doing so, I'd found my purpose. Found a place where I belonged. Found a future worth fighting for. And that, in the end, was worth more than any quiet life back on Earth could ever be.